Contact belongs to that quirky subset of RPGs that is often forgotten for its contemporaries, making it a hard sell nowadays, especially for those with low tolerance to obtuse details. Not to the levels of, for example, The Last Remnant, but more like the infamous goat puzzle. If you still want to play through this bizarre adventure that is stuck between Earthbound and Undertale, please give it a try yourself. Just remember to grab this damn bird. While I mentioned Earthbound, it's important to note that its famously unlocalized sequel actually came 1 month later after Contact, so that is certainly interesting. In the end, Mother 3 is the better game of the two, but I still believe it's worth to check this one out if you're craving for a similar game that occupies that particular niche of RPGs. While its existence might seem odd, when you look back at the background of the team, it's easy to see how it came to fruition. Directed by Akira Ueda, who started as a background artist at Square and worked on games like Super Mario RPG, later gathered with a couple of co-workers to form the independent studio Love the Lake, and working on both Moon Remix and UFO before jumping to Grasshopper Manufacture, where he finally debuted as a director on both Shining Soul games. Putting them all together, you can see his characteristic pre-rendered style across all the titles he worked on. Plus, Yasuhiro Wada was one of the executive producers, known as the man responsible in creating the original Harvest Moon series, so that special everyday feel is guaranteed here. Also on board is Atsuko Fukushima, responsible for the character designs, mostly known for her work on the Popolo Croix series. With that out of the way, let's get right into it, as we got a long journey ahead of us. Starting right away by breaking the fourth wall and making contact with the other side, you get the attention of an old man, only known as the Professor, who asks you a couple of personal questions before being presented with some trippy shit. You're introduced to Terry, the main character, who is just chilling in the park when a space rock falls from the sky, being quickly retrieved by the Professor as Terry is pulled into the ride of his life. Later, waking up in a beach after the ship crashes, the Professor explains how it wants you, the player, to help Terry meet back up with him, as he fused the spaceship with a pirate ship so he doesn't draw any unnecessary attention. As you are finally given control over Terry, you get some time to get used to the controls and the usual double layout of the game, with all of the action happening on the bottom screen, while the top screen is relegated to the Professor's ship, where he spots random quips related to what is happening at the moment. You see, this was originally developed for the Game Boy Advance, but when porting the project to the Nintendo DS, of course they tried to cram certain mechanics just to make use of the system specs, falling into that awkward middle ground of being able to play entirely with a touchscreen, but if you just want to hold the DS like a normal handheld, you'll be forced to take out the stylus at random. At least it is the perfect system to drive home how the two characters from two different worlds have to work together for a common goal, but clashing with their own art style, both present at all times. So you get to the ship, and the Professor asks for help locating these elemental cells, claiming that they're used to power the ship and not essential to get Terry back home. In exchange, you get a whole bedroom for yourself and a fancy transmitter called the Menu, short for Multi-Element Nano Unit. From that moment on, the Professor explains some of the game mechanics like the battle system, which I would describe as a simplified version of the Active Dimension battle from Final Fantasy XII, where you engage with the enemy on the field, but are encouraged to strategically move around to either take a preemptive strike or dodge the enemy's attacks. Every time you kill an enemy, you have the chance to gain 1 tech point, which are consumed by using tech skills. I always made sure to go to the bosses with a full bar, just so I could deal massive damage right away, but that is when I wasn't caught by surprise by a boss out of nowhere. Next is the decals, one of the fourth wall-breaking mechanics, where you, as the player, use the stickers to provide support for Terry, be it a quick escape from a dungeon or a powerful attack, with those being replenished every time you revisit the Professor. Terry can also be equipped with a set of 4 different decals that drop from enemies, but honestly, those seemed so useless that I barely paid them any attention. After exploring the island for a bit, you find the first cell as the professor warns you about secret spots. And goddammit, how I wish they warned me harder, because the secret spots are the art of contact. Get ready to test your Doom skills, because you're gonna be sliding your shin across every damn wall that you can't see directly, as it's most likely that they have a secret. Even more fucked up is how some of this is necessary to get to the end, so enjoy being paranoid at all times because you're not sure if you got everything in a dungeon. With that, you get your first costume. Yeah, costumes. Those are really important and basically act as jobs, with each offering different stat buffs and tech skills, besides other perks. This first one is a Ninja Water Firefighter, which gives you water techniques. Going back to the ship, the professor explains how he took Terry's phone to use for spare parts, but at least he lets him message his mum back on his big fancy computer. With that solved, the Sea Navy is introduced and you're finally given reign over the ship, so if you want to go to previous islands, you can go do that. And you'll want to, because the old places are always filled with new content later on. For now, a new cell is located in the island of Caldoaxa, so you set the destination and then go to sleep. Two things here. As the hours pile up, having to go to sleep every time you want to change island is kinda inconvenient, as it only adds an extra step to the process. The other thing is that when you're sleeping, you are forced into an interaction minigame with the ship's own mascot, Moshi. Here you can have him do several tasks to raise his happiness, which is important because of the Mochi decal, which has him come in a moment's notice and deal damage to all enemies on screen. Problem is that I just gave up interacting with him, so his damage was kinda useless. My fault on that one, but having to interact with him every time you go to sleep is kinda boring. Okay, so Caldoaxa. No, wait, there's an extra island before. The appropriately called La Chef's Beach, where you meet a naked in-training cook waiting for his uniform to dry before getting it stolen by a monkey. You already know how this goes, so I'll just skip to the part where you beat the tiger to death, save the monkey and the man offers you the uniform, one of the best in the game even. Now is a good time to talk about Terry's stats, because goddamn there's a lot of them. You get the usual RPG ones, plus separate damage and defense for both physical and magic attacks. But then you get stuff like thievery, fishing and cooking, which you can guess how that goes into play. And like it wasn't enough, you also have fame, courage and karma, which in retrospective doesn't have a big impact besides some side stuff. Maybe because of the Undertale stigma, I realized too late how you can attack normal NPCs without much repercussions. I would even say that is probably the best way to get money from drops, as characters like shopkeepers can drop their inventory. Back to the stats, you don't have a base level, so you raise the individual skills by using them, so if you like swords, your slash level is bound to be higher than most. I like this system because even if you run from a fight midway, you still get the experience from the stats that were used. At the same time, I hate this system, because for example, things like cooking, you either use the tech skill from the cook outfit, or you cook a lot, which you need to do to be able to cook higher tier dishes. By the end, I really don't know which is the biggest grind, but I guess this fits well with its handheld nature, being built around tackling the game at bite-sized sessions, so the grind is not so noticeable. Might as well talk about grinding and its inherent connection to RPGs, especially of the age kind. You don't have to grind in Contact in the same manner that you don't have to grind in Final Fantasy VIII. Which is to say that if you actually read what things do and don't brute force it, you'll do just fine. Even so, there are things that if you know in advance can help you a lot, so let me do just that. First of all, level up that cooking skill, it's really important. Not even just in game, but also in real life. Come on, always strive to be the best you can be every day. I know you can do it. You see, no matter how good your stats are, you're still going to take damage, so what you want to do is just have a bunch of food. But not to eat directly, because the game has a digestive system, where if you're too full, Terry can't eat anymore. What you want to do is to sell all of the dishes to either buy herbs or potions, mostly because these two barely fill the meter, so you can just stuff your face and cruise through the game like this. You can get a fruit knife from a chest in the island, which gives you more cooking experience, Plus you can use the gut tech, which when killing an enemy with it gives you a guaranteed food drop, and you'll need those. If you want to make it easy for yourself, just kill a bunch of bats, and I mean a bunch. They drop chicken, because I guess they both taste the same, and you can tell them apart. I mean, what's the worst that could happen really? This also leads well to one of my bigger complaints of the game. So if you want to cook 99 chickens or buy 99 potions, hope you got the time and patience, cause you're going through them one by one. I should reiterate how technically you never have to grind, it just makes things easier later. Okay, for real now, time for Kaldwaxa. You investigate the town, find out about monsters and some dude named Lester that wants to get into the demon zone to check out a demon gate, and wants your help to open some door. When you manage to slide inside, you're finally in the first proper dungeon, where you also find your next costume, Knuckle Mole. It's pretty cool, you can throw rocks with it and shit. By the end of it, you find Lester again, but he doesn't even try to continue the charade and comes clean about also wanting the elemental cell. But at least he leaves you with a warning, so you don't get caught in a boss fight without going back to heal and save. This is probably the first filter of the game, where if you don't have your stats to par, or no means to buy healing items, you'll probably be forced to grind. After beating him, you get some more clues about what is going on and a free sword. But if that wasn't enough of a filter, you get another boss right away. This one has a bit more strategy involved, as you can dodge attacks and plan how you strike back, but still, healing back is the key. Another cell is acquired, you get some stern talking from the village chief, you save some dude from his own storage basement, and then go right into the next location, Fort Eagle. The professor warns you that the place will be heavily guarded and recommends stealth, but I change back to the cook uniform and prepare to go to town. That would be the case, but you meet Sebastian first, who lives in the surrounding woods, and who seems weirdly placed in the game, of how he talks about being robbed of his memories by the army and the government wanting the cells to make the frogs gay or something. But then there's a girl for some facility in a house that is clearly Sebastian's, who just asks if she's a pirate. Like, what the fuck is going on? You then rush to the house, only to discover you have to bring Sebastian with you, who has some of the worst pathfinding I ever seen, only to also discover that the dog has to come too. These fucking escort missions, I swear. As soon as you arrive, you get surrounded by the military, and it's revealed that the elemental cells are made out of something called Element 117. A bit of trivia here. The real-life Element 117, named Tennessine, would only be discovered years later, after the game was released, so one can speculate how the mystery of this element back when the game was being written was used as a powerful unknown substance, used to power spaceships and whatnot. Anyway, this evolves to some waxing of philosophy over the nature of man, and then a boss battle ensues. Caught off guard, I get my ass kicked and sent back to the ship, where I have to redo the damn escort part. Momentarily safe from all of that, now Sebastian tells how this girl, Dolly, is running away from some organization who's experimenting with cloning people. Wait a goddamn minute. Well, this has to be stopped and the cell has to be collected, so I'll just go over there and murder every soldier on my path. Kinda tucked away in the corner, there's a path that leads to an airbase with a really funny moment, where some blokes explain how they spent all of their money on the runway, so they don't have any money for actual planes, so they just practice by going around with their arms spread out. Even then, it's important that you kill them because you get rewarded with the pilot uniform, and with it, wind attacks. Finally infiltrating the base, you get some sick electronic music to go along with it. And also a pair of aliens just roaming around in a room, which of course you can kill and cook their meat, because that's just how Terry rolls. Then you fight a snake, and a bunch of Razor branded skunks. And some Uyas too. And then Lester shows up once more to get his ass kicked, but not before revealing how he belongs to a group called the Cosmonauts, and that they want the elemental cells that the professor stole, who in his defense decides to go with a classical nah. Some gal named Mint is also mentioned by name and is said to know how to make weapons out of the cells, so yeah, stopping her too and whatnot. You meet with her next, and she sounds like she is choking on something, but trying to act cool about it. And then the worst boss happens. Okay, so you have to kill every soldier before being able to hit the machine, but the problem is that you can barely hit the machine before having to kill more soldiers. And what the game has decided to never explain is that you are supposed to touch the screen where those two buttons are to change the channels in the upper screen to porn and distract the scientists. After knowing that, yeah, it's really easy, and there is another cell in the bank. Some more exposition, like how the cosmonauts were involved with the Area 52, and off we go to Egypt, ages. This is where the bullshit starts, so get ready. As it wasn't enough, you have to escort some archaeologists to the depths of a pyramid, which is bad enough. But then after dropping him off, you have a room where you have to step on some tiles with the corresponding weapon type equipped. Okay, not so bad, until you go to the next room and there are 4 tiles with each of the 4 elements, and the only way to have those elements is wearing the right costume, so I hope you like doing laps in the desert, because you're gonna have to return to the ship at least 3 times to equip the other T outfits. If this wasn't bad enough, let's imagine, for example, that you didn't get the pilot uniform, which is kinda hidden on the previous island. Then what are you supposed to do? Hope you like searching every nook and cranny for whatever the hell you missed, cause this gets even worse later on. This also brings the point that I wish the game had a map. That and a bestiary that told you what items dropped from each enemies, like in later Castlevanias. You also need the racing costume from a literally hot lady that needs help fixing her car, which actually means paying for her part that the car is missing, causing her to just drop her clothes right there and then, and driving away into the desert. Fine, whatever. So you do all of that and get the MacGuffin to open the door to another pyramid, and god damn it, I really wish there was a map, because this dungeon sucks to the highest degree. There are spots where you can dig, but the game tells you that you need the monk costume, which, okay, I guess this is something you get around here. Only to realize by the end of the game that by monk they actually meant the knuckle mole costume. How the fuck was I supposed to know that? It's even worse when you consider that one of the items you get from digging is a worm, which you can give to the fisherman on Fort Eagle, which then gets eaten by a fish and you get his outfit. So that's why I don't even have footage of me wearing it. Moving on, you go all over the pyramid, meet Nadia and Bull, who you stumbled upon previously when you arrived at the island, plus the monkey from the cooking island. They present themselves as the other members of Cosmonauts, and then the fucking bloke decides he wants to fight the kid because Lester said he was strong. Of course, his ass gets a beating, and more pyramid bullshit ensues. Eventually, you get to see the Cosmonauts trying to hack a pyramid for some reason, but things go wrong. You fight an annoying quartet of coffins, which then leads to Terry being abducted into cyberspace, while a pyramid is teleporting all over the universe, and you have to fight copies of your shadow. This is certain to raise Terry's Kundalini to level 3 at least. Another cell, and back to the ship we go. Apparently, in the middle of all of that, the cosmonauts got sucked into the pyramid dimension, so the professor cuts them a deal that if they help them find the cells, he gets them out of there. He proceeds to get them out of there, and they immediately don't help at all. What a great fucking plan. Habara is the next island, so there we go. The professor says that the next cell is scattered, but that it should be fine. Probably. I get it. Akihabara, land of electronics, maids and bopping music. I forgot to mention, but there are several girls with specific tastes to which you can offer several items to increase their relationship with you. But as far as I can tell, they aren't useful for anything, which is a degree of realism I wasn't expecting, but still totally based. Am I right or am I right, fellas? Okay, moving on. Some dude tells me it's time for the concert, and if he had a Mew crystal, he could meet with someone named Mute. But whatever, it's probably not important. There's a building to climb, and home appliances to fight. And if that wasn't enough, you finally get to use the going into games machine, not only once, but twice. And luckily, no one smelled like shit in there. But it still takes its sweet time, and I hope I don't have to go through that again. On the top, you discover that the cosmonauts are having a concert, and Mute is actually Mint, using her disguise to con everyone into bringing them the pieces of the cell in exchange for a handjob or something. Like, that's a lot of handjobs, my dude. I don't know about the logistics on that, but she's going to end up with some sick biceps by the end of the day. Terry gets too excited by the thought, and so he jumps to stop all of this, but she gets the complete cell anyway, and they all skedaddle out of there. Terry then has his first life crisis, but after a quick bath he is ready for action, where the professor explains how the last cell is in Castlevania. Time for the last island. Let's do this. Actually no, you get caught in a storm and are thrown off course to a small remote island where one of the cosmonauts is playing the Song of Storms. Hope you're ready for some bullshit, cause I fucking wasn't. After running around aimlessly for hours, I realized that what I needed was some anime opening song that a dude was selling back in Abara for 10k, which I thought was some quirky scam thing like the house in Earthbound. Lol, nope. You actually need that to progress. But the problem is that 10k is still fucking expensive, especially for someone who is constantly buying potions, so what now? Well, in retrospective I should have killed the guy until he dropped it, but I didn't know I could do that back then. What you might not remember by this point in the game is that the old man back in Kalduaksa speaks of wanting to eat raw fish on rice, so you buy that shit and sell it with the biggest markup in history of man just so you can buy some anime song. Okay, that should be it then, right? Nope, of course not. You still have to get up there and the only way is through a door that is locked. And what I haven't told you is how you randomly get keys to unlock chests, but you get like 2 keys for the 30 chests in the game. What I also didn't remember is how sometimes in random doors and chests, the game tells you that you need the Shadow Thief uniform for that. Okay, that makes sense. I was missing 2 outfits by that point, so I guess you need one of these to progress. So where is it? Oh, you know, you just have to discover the secret save point in the second pyramid, then go further down to a second secret that leads to a balcony where you have to touch the screen when a bird flies by, which drops the map to the Bamboo Island, where you do a side quest for a dying thief, which includes looking for something called Amnosia, that I spent hours looking for all over Kalduaksa, to finally find it by mistake in the storage room where that one dude almost died, just so when I went back to the fucking kid, having the boss to explain me that, Amnosia, oh you might know it as globes, well thanks a lot for only telling me that now fuckface. Then you had to deliver a letter and it's supposed to be a touching scene, but at this moment I stopped caring. You go back, he makes you unlock the chest and proceeds to die right after, which then aliens take him away or some shit. After changing to some b-boy clothes that barely match the illustration, you finally open the door, exchange the music, clear the storm and storm right into the castle. You fight your way through the castle, kill some demons, finally unlock all the chests with your b-boy skills, until you get bamboozled by the cosmonauts and almost get beaten to death, if it wasn't for our boy Mochi pulling a Castlevania any percent to save Terry's ass. A final rush through the castle, and you finally catch up with Mint as you proceed to assault her in a scenario reminiscent of the opening cutscene. But this time, she uses one of the cells to control a dragon. It's fine really, by this point I still had like 50 potions, so it all comes down to how much the kid can chug, which after all of this, is a certified pro at it. You beat the dragon, then the other 2 stooges, then the dragon again, which then leads to punching a girl on top of a rocket ship, only to lose the last cell anyway, as the professor snatches it and skedaddles right off. Terry ends up on the same exact point where the entire journey began, as he reveals that he was aware of you controlling him all along, causing him to revolt against the player, until you poke him back to his place. It takes off the professor's transmitter, which you were using to control him, finally becoming a free man after all of this. Mint then interrupts one of her concerts to come back to help him, give him a ride home, and taking the opportunity to ask Terry for help when the right time comes. As the game ends with the biggest cliffhanger, which hasn't been solved and it probably will never be. If you do wait for a minute on the ending, you get back to the ship where you can read a letter written by the professor, apologizing to both you and Terry as he goes further with the meta commentary and questions his own existence, at least having the decency of leaving a copy of himself for when you want to play the game again, as his real self is gone to travel the world and you are stuck on this screen until you power the game off. Back when the final episode of Lost was broadcasted, I actually watched it without ever seeing a single episode before. And let me tell you, I understood that better than this entire game. So what about all those personal questions at the beginning? Besides one of them that is mentioned in the professor's apology, it doesn't seem like they're used for anything else, so that's a bummer. There's also something called Wi-Fi Island. where you can connect with other players and get exclusive items. But as you might suspect, the contact player base isn't the strongest in 2023, so there's no way for me to get into that right now. I was also half expecting for the Professor's ships to morph into other vehicles, but I guess it just stays a pirate galleon the entire time, which is a bit disappointing. The entire game seems cut short, because I only got halfway to max any of the skills, so I didn't get to see a bunch of the techs that Eldest Jobs had to offer, and if I wanted to see them, the grind would have been horrible. There are also these books that you collect that tell some sort of story, which I was half expecting to reveal something important that would connect everything in the end. But there are 15 volumes, and one of them is locked behind the Wi-Fi islands, so I just read them online, only to get even more confused. In the last island, you do get some foreshadowing about the Professor, and how he's just grabbed the radioactive material with his bare hands, and now he's probably the bad guy all along. I still feel like nothing is ever properly explained, especially the existence of the cosmonauts. Like, you can read about them in hidden articles throughout the game, but they only add more confusion to the mix. How the fortune of Lester's dad helped them committing pacifist terrorism, and now Minty is a part of something called the Cloudy Crime Syndicate, and now she's also the heir to some other fortune. Okay. I guess the noble idea of a self-aware RPG is now a bit overplayed, especially one that ends with such a steep cliffhanger. But hey, besides some obtuse parts, it was still a fun ride. See you all later, and remember,
never give up!